Hey guys, for today's video we are going to do some extra practice on special right triangles. So we're going to mix in 45, 45, 90 triangles and 30, 60, 90 triangles together. Okay, so our first one here is isosceles, which means this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. In a 45, 45, 90, the legs are to 1 as the hypotenuse is to root 2. Okay, now for x, we actually don't even have to do any work. The two legs are the same. So x is 12, so I'm done with that part. For y, I've got y is to the square root of 2 as 12 is to 1. Okay, so now I can just multiply this across, and I get y is 12 times the square root of 2, and it's over 1, but I don't need to write over 1. So 12 root 2 is my value for y. Our next one has a 60 and a 90, so it's a 30, 60, 90. And in a 30, 60, 90, the short leg is to 1 as the hypotenuse is to 2 as the long leg is to the square root of 3. So I've got L is to the square root of 3 as 4 is to 1. And I'm going to multiply that square root of 3 across. So I've got L is 4 times the square root of 3, and that's over 1, so I don't need to write that. So there's L. And then I have M is to 2 as 4 is to 1, and I multiply that 2 across, and I get M is 8, and again it's over 1, so I don't need to write that, so M is 8. All right, here I've got another 45, 45, 90. Legs are to 1 as the hypotenuse is to the square root of 2. So I have A is to 1 as 6 root 2 is to root 2. Now the square root of 2 over the square root of 2 cancels. So I'm left with A over 1 equals 6, and that's over 1. So really, A equals 6. And because of 45, 45, 90 is isosceles, that means B is also 6. Number 4 is isosceles, so it's a 45, 45, 90. And that means that these two are the same, so Z is 4 times the square root of 2, so I'm done with Z. And the legs are to 1 as the hypotenuse is to the square root of 2. So I have P is to the square root of 2 as 4 root 2 is to 1. So I will multiply the multiply the square root of 2 across to this 4 times the square root of 2. So I have P equals 4 times, and then the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. So P is 8. Here is a 30, 60, 90. The short leg is to 1 as the hypotenuse is to 2 as the longer leg is to the square root of 3. So I have D is to 1 as 9 is to the square root of 3. Now D over 1 is really just D. Okay, so D is already by itself. But I have an irrational number in the denominator here, so I need to multiply the top and bottom here both by the square root of 3. So I get D is 9 times the square root of 3 over, and then the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3. 9 is divisible by 3. 3 goes into 9 3 times, so 3 times the square root of 3 is my final answer for D. Okay, then I have E is to 2 as 9 is to the square root of 3. So I need to multiply that 2 across, and I get E is 18 over the square root of 3. And I need to multiply the top and bottom both by the square root of 3. So I get E is 18 root 3 over 3. And 3 goes into 18 6 times, so E is 6 times the square root of 3. Number 6, I have another 30, 60, 90. the shorter leg is to 1 as the hypotenuse is to 2 as the longer leg is to the square root of 3. So I have Q is to 1 as 11 is to 2. Now, Q over 1 is already solved for Q. It's just Q equals, and I can actually just leave this as 11 halves. Okay, 5.5 would be an acceptable answer as well, or 5.5, but this improper fraction is just fine, so I'm going to keep it like that, as 11 halves. Okay, then I have r is to the square root of 3, as 11 is to 2, and I will multiply the square root of 3 across, and I get r is 11 root 3 over 2. Okay, another 45, 45, 90. So once I get G or T, I have the other one also. Okay, these are going to be the same. Legs are to 1 as the hypotenuse is to the square root of 2. So I have G is to 1 as 16 is to the square root of 2. Okay, G over 1 is G, so I don't really have to multiply this 1 across. That won't change anything. But I do need to multiply top and bottom here by the square root of 2 to rationalize the denominator. So I have G is 16 times the square root of 2 over, and then root 2 times root 2 is 2. And 2 goes into 16 8 times, so I have G equals 8 times the square root of 2, and T is also 8 times the square root of 2. Very similar situation here where I've got the two legs of this 45, 45, 90. They both are over 1, and the hypotenuse is to the square root of 2. So once I get one of those, I'll have both. So J is to 1 as 17 is to the square root of 2. Okay, J over 1 is J. But I need to multiply top and bottom here by the square root of 2. So I get 17 root 2 over 2. 2 does not go into 17 evenly, so that will be my final answer for J and for K. Okay, now here we have a person looking up toward the top of this building here, clearly not drawn to scale. From the ground to eye level here is 5 feet. The person is standing 260 feet from the building. How tall is the building? All right, so we're looking at a 30, 60, 90 triangle here. And in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, we have 1, 2, root 3. Okay, now this right here is what we are looking for. Okay, representing the height of the building, or at least most of the height of the building. So we have x is to 1 as 260 is to the square root of 3. Okay, so in this case, we're talking about the height of a building. Okay, so this is a real world object. So this is an appropriate time to have an approximate answer. So we are going to divide 260 by the square root of 3 and make a decimal out of it. 260 divided by the square root of 3 is 150.11. Okay, so that covers that much, 150.11. But we have to remember that this right here is 5 feet, so we have to add 5 to that. So the height of the building is 155.11 feet. Okay, then how tall is this tree? So we're going to find this right here, and this is a 45, 45, 90. So we have the two legs, both over 1. The hypotenuse is over the square root of 2, which means this right here is 8. Okay, but we have to add this much right here, which is 6. So 8 plus 6 is 14. The tree is 14 feet tall.